Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again. We're going to go out to California on the west coast, the home of American craft beer of course, to the southern part of the state, to a little place called San Marcos, which looks as if it's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half or so to the north of San Diego, and we're going to have a look at a brewery or brand of beer, I guess you could say, that has never featured on the channel before, and I'm very excited for this one actually. This is, I think, one of my favourite styles of craft beer. So for this review then, we are going to go to the hop concept for the first time, and we're having a taste of the Dank and Sticky today, which also happens to be the first beer that these guys ever produced back in 2014. So this beer comes in at 8.5% ABV, and it's an Imperial double IPA, as I guess you can probably gather from the name. These days though, I guess we should refer to it as a West Coast double or West Coast Imperial IPA, because you know we've got milkshake IPAs, we've got New England IPAs, black IPAs, Kvike IPAs over here in Europe and things like that. So these days we should call this one a double West Coast IPA. But if you've watched the channel before, you will know that I'm an absolute stickler for this style. I love a good, big, bitter and sweet caramelly West Coast IPA. The hop bill on this one, I have to say, it looks pretty damn awesome, and I'm just really curious to see what this one has in store for us. I got this beer through glassbanken.se. On the internet, which, you know, to be honest with this one, I just wanted a really good West Coast IPA, and this is one that just caught my eye because I hadn't heard of the brewery before, and the name really kind of stuck with me. The Dank and Sticky, which is exactly what you want from a good old West Coast IPA. There's too many of the kind of new, modern West Coast IPAs that are just not bitter enough. They just don't have that kind of 80 IBUs or whatever that you really want from this style. The malt bases are nice, the fruitiness is nice, but they just don't have the kind of big floral, piney dankness that you would want from this style. So I need a good classic Californian West Coast IPA. So hopefully this one can deliver, but I've got a good feeling that this one may well do just that. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from the hop concept. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, although not as often as I would like. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the hop concept then, and I will warn you, the history of this is a little bit kind of strange because there's 3 and 4 other brands of beer kind of connected to this one, so pay close attention to this. It took me a while to figure this out actually. So the hop concept is one of 4 brands of beer produced by the same brewery in San Marcos in California. So this is Port Brewing Company, the Lost Abbey Brewery, Hop Concept, and then Tiny Bubbles Brewing. And this history is also kind of connected to Pizza Port Brewing as well. And you have seen me review one of their beers on the channel before. That was the Swami's IPA, which I had maybe about 2 years ago or something like that, and that was very nice, I have to say. But Pizza Port Brewing Company, where this whole story originates, are based in San Diego in California. The company was founded by the siblings Gina and Vince Marsaglia when they bought a struggling pizza place in Solana Beach back in March of 1987. So they had some free space on the premises, and so Vince started experimenting with home brewing, and a few years later they installed a 7-barrel brew kit, and the first beers were produced for sale there in October of 1992. Over the years they've continued to expand the brewery, and they've added more restaurants to their kind of business, if you like, and also more beers to the repertoire as well. But Vince had always been a big fan of the Belgian Abbey beers, and he really kind of dreamed of brewing these commercially. But this remained a kind of idea in his mind until Thomas Arthur was hired by the brewery, and he started brewing at Pizza Port back in 1997. In November of that year they produced the Dubel, and then a number of other Belgian beers were produced quite quickly afterwards. But then later in 2005, when Stone Brewing, one of the iconic American craft breweries, one of the first ones that we encountered over here as well actually in Europe, But Stone Brewing moved out of their brewery in San Marcos, and so Vince, Gina and Tommy teamed up to take over the facility. And when they started working there, it was decided that there would be 2 lines of beer. So this was Port Brewing Company, which would produce the classic kind of Californian American style craft beers, and then there would also be the Lost Abbey Brewery, which would focus on the Belgian styles of beers. So they opened the doors to the brewery in 2006, and they started off with a 30-barrel brewing system, and apparently over the years they've amassed a library of close to 1,000 or over 1,000 different barrels, you know, like sherry barrels, whiskey barrels, bourbon barrels and things like this for their barrel aging program. So they've continually expanded over the years too, and they've won many different awards. But today they've got 3 tap rooms. Under the Lost Abbey name, they've got the tasting room in San Marcos, the confessional in Cardiff by the Sea, and also the sanctuary in San Elio as well. So I need to go and check those out at some point too. I do need to review a few of the Lost Abbey beers for you on the channel, but those tend to be quite expensive when I see them in Copenhagen, but we'll need to see about that. But the first beer was released from the Hop Concept line in 2014, and it was this one here. But then the Tiny Bubbles brand was added to the portfolio of Port Brewing Company, which seems to be the kind of parent name of this whole organisation. That was added to the portfolio in 2009 after the rights for this beer were purchased from Hollister Brewing, and this brand seems to focus on kind of modern sour beers. I think the 2 beers that are listed on Untappd, if I remember rightly, are Goses, but I think it's a kind of brut yeast strain that they use for those beers. But today, the kind of whole company, if you like, they've produced 100 different beers under the Lost Abbey name. There's 120 different beers under the Port Brewing Company name, 40 that have been released under the Hop Concept, and then 2 different beers that have been released under the Tiny Bubbles brand. So yeah, Hop Concept has been around since 2014, as I said, and there's 40 different beers that you can get from these guys, but this one was the very first one that they released, and this particular brand seems to focus mainly on IPAs, as the name Hop Concept seems to would kind of indicate actually. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about this one. This beer, the review will be titled The Hop Concept, Dank and Sticky. But I'm pretty sure the parent company, the parent organisation is called Port Brewing Company. I'm not sure if they're registered legally as separate entities or whatever, but yeah, they're brewed in the same place as the Port Brewing Company beers and the Lost Abbey beers as well, the old facility of Stone Brewing in San Marcos. So yeah, really interesting kind of history behind this one actually, and I do hope that I can try more beers from this line at some point in the near future. So yeah, I wanted to tell you also a little bit about a couple of the hops in this one, because I haven't encountered 2 of these for a very long time, come to think of it. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open the beer up. There you can see the hop concept of this one. It actually does remind me a little bit of these things you used to get to put in your cars, you know, the things that you would stick off the mirror. And they would give you that sort of piney freshness and things. I don't know if that's intentional, but that's what the artwork on this one really reminds me of. But yeah, it says this one is part of the Hop Freshener series, so there was 4 beers in that as far as I can figure, and I think that those are seasonal beers. They release a new one every, they're released on kind of cycle every 3 or 4 months, and some of the other ones also looked very nice, so maybe, I hope that I can review some of those for you at some point in the future. But there you can see, there is the Hop Concept badge there, and it says on the back of the can here, flavour that's right on the nose. The inaugural beer of the Hop Concept brand, this IPA boasts aroma of citrus and dank resinous pine. As the flavour opens, a huge note of stone fruits and dank resin give way to a malty backbone and a drying hop bitterness on the finish. The Hop Freshener series centres around aromatic and flavourful IPAs, with each designed to showcase a specific characteristic. Honest, hoppy beers from the same team of lifelong brewers behind the Lost Abbey and Port Brewing Company. So yeah, the hops in this one then are Cascade, Centennial, Chinook, Comet, CTZ, Eureka, Mosaic and Simcoe, and you know, we know Cascade is the classic American hop, you know, the sort of slightly grapefruity one, nice floral notes. Centennial we know is that kind of lemony sherbety one that gives you, it's quite high alpha acid, that one around 11-12%. Cascade I think is around 8. Chinook is that big, you know, beast of a piney resin. This one gives you a lot of nice grapefruit as well. Comet we'll come to in a little minute. CTZ is a blend, I think, of Cascade, Tomahawk and Zeus, or it might be something else. I think the C actually stands for something else, but it's Tomahawk and Zeus, and that's usually used as a bittering hop. Eureka is in this one, we'll come and talk about that in a minute. Mosaic we know is that lovely kind of lighter tangerine orange one, and Simcoe of course, is that lighter kind of almost milky, kind of passion fruity one, which comes in 11 to 12% alpha acid. Mosaic, I think, is around 14% alpha acid. But yeah, just to tell you a little bit about Eureka and Comet then, because these are hops that we don't see all that often over here in Europe. So Eureka apparently is bred originally from Apollo, and it gives between 17 and 19% alpha acid. It's supposed to give you a lot of blackcurranty, dark fruit and piney resin flavours, so I really like the sound of that. It almost sounds a little bit like Williamette, but on steroids. And then Comet, this is actually quite an old hop. It was released back in 1974, and it gives you between 9.5 and 12.5% alpha acid, and it's supposed to be a really big resinous hop that gives you a lot of grapefruity flavour. So yeah, those two will be quite interesting. As I said, I focused on those two because I know all the other hops in this one, but you know, those two we don't see very often over here in Europe. So yeah, I like how this one, I like how the hop bill of this one lines up. I'm wondering which ones will have been used as the bittering hops. It's always interesting with the brewing, because you know, the earlier in the boil that you add these, the more bitterness and things you get out of them, but when you add them later in the boil, that's when you start to get the trade-off between bitterness and flavour and aroma profile. So I really like that about this beer. But yeah, 8.5% ABV this one, a West Coast double Imperial IPA. So yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. This can is 1 American pint, which is 473 millilitres. I always make fun of the American measurement system because this whole thing with cups and quarts and everything makes no sense. In my last video I did that, and then there was one of the Americans commented, "We have freedom units in America," which I thought, you know, I always love that joke, you know, I always love the freedom jokes that you get from some of the American viewers, so you know, keep those coming, those are always fun. But yeah, 473 mils this one, 1 American pint. Let's get it out and into the glass. So yeah, the American pint is a little bit different from the British Imperial pint, which is 568 millilitres, but you know, in Europe we're having this whole thing now where breweries are putting them in 440 millilitres, so that it's kind of closer to the American pint. But you know, I still like the German idea of selling them in half litres. It just makes sense. Half litres or 330s. That's what it should be in my opinion. But yeah, 473 millilitres. It's a little bit more beer. I'm not going to bitch about it too much. But yeah, let's get on and have a little look at this beer itself then. So yeah, as you can see, this one has poured with a lovely kind of medium amber colour. It's not the kind of darkest of ambers you're going to come across, it's not the lightest of ambers, somewhere in the middle. And this is the kind of colour that you would expect for a nice West Coast IPA. The two things that can affect the colour of your beer, of course, are the types of malts that you use and also how long the boil is, because the longer you boil it, the more the sugars kind of caramelise and things, and that will give you a slightly darker colour. But of course, if you use different caramels and things like that, that's also going to darken the colour of your beer. The standard units, of course, are the EBCs. But yeah, this one looks as if it's somewhere in the middle of the IPA spectrum. I would describe this as a kind of medium amber colour. But you can see there was about a quarter finger of a frothy white head on this one. That's faded away to just be a very, very thin foamy layer. Just a few little kind of islands of foam just sitting there on the top. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you know, overall it does look pretty damn nice, I have to say. So yeah, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider what style it is, but yeah, I think this one is going to be really pretty nice actually. So let's take a closer look at that aroma then before we get on with this one. As you can see, there is a slight degree of haze to this one, which you do expect with a West Coast IPA, although it's nowhere near as hazy as you're going to get from the things on the opposite side of America. So yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. Ooh, yeah, that's going to be awesome. Like a kid in a sweet shop, honestly. I can't speak English these days, focusing too much on my Swedish. But yeah, this one smells really nice. It's not the sweetest of IPAs, but the fruitiness is really nice and oily in this one. It's not the most kind of pungent of aromas, I would say, either, but it comes across as really well balanced. Yeah, I think it's really... It comes across to me as being very, very well balanced actually. So straight away with this one, you smell that kind of nice sort of white bready backbone to the beer. I do suspect there's kind of there's probably American two-row malts in this, which I do love. So it smells like it's got some of that in it. So that kind of white bready backbone is definitely there. You get some nice biscuity notes, like a kind of McVitie's digestive sort of thing. You also get a bit of a kind of slightly sweeter caramel coming out of it, but it's a very kind of light caramel. It's not a big dark, it's not one of those kind of big dark, very, very thick caramels actually. Yeah, it actually leans a little bit more towards the kind of biscuity end of the spectrum, I would say. And that kind of makes sense when you look at the colour of this one. I don't know if they would have used kind of full-on caramel malts in this one, but you know, the two-row malts, even, there's lots of different two-row malts. There's pale, there's extra pale, things like that, so they always give you slightly different kind of flavour profiles and stuff, so I really like that. But the two-row malts, of course, they're not very commonly used over here in Europe, because obviously, you know, we've got German malt, Austrian malt, all of these kind of things, a lot of Czech malt as well, so not many European breweries use the American malts. It's a bit of a shame, but you know, you can understand why they do it, import tariffs and all of this kind of thing. So yeah, it's always nice to have something a little bit different with the American beers, and that's one of the great things about craft beer, of course, is the kind of regionality of it. You didn't, you know, when you've reviewed 2,000 odd beers, you really start to notice trends from different countries and things like this. So yeah. So for me, the malt base of this one, it comes across as quite light, not too complex, very much a kind of straight shooter actually, and with all these different hops in it, the focus obviously is going to be on the hops. So yeah, pretty kind of straight up malt base, maybe one or two tiny little woody undertones to it, but you know, pretty much a straight shooter when it comes to the malty side of things. On the hoppy side of things though, there's quite a bit going on here. So you can pick up a wee tiny touch of earthiness at the back of the nose, but mainly it's leaning towards a nice kind of big floral aromatic note about this one. CTZ actually, it'll be Columbus, Tomahawk and Zeus. That's what I was thinking of. I had the brain fart earlier and couldn't remember. So yeah, you do definitely get a little bit of that kind of typical spiciness that you would expect of Columbus. I don't get too much in the way of piney resins out of this though. I think they might come out in the flavour right enough, but to me this beer leans a little bit more towards the kind of floral side of things. You've got a nice little bit of grassiness to it as well, but the aroma of this one, again, it comes across as quite well balanced. I think it might be very big and bold in the kind of flavour side of things, but I find the aroma of this, it's not the most pungent that I've come across, I have to say, but it does go together very, very nicely. On the fruity side of things, there's quite a lot going on with this one. You can really, I do notice the red fruits in this, the sort of black curranty, blackberry sort of things from the Eureka. I noticed that straight away, and that's because it smells kind of, it does smell slightly different from the other West Coast IPAs that I've had. One of the tricks with brewing this style, from what I gather, and I was told this by a home brewer who's very good at the West Coast IPAs, what they used to do with these was put a little bit of grape sugar in, because apparently that kind of changed the flavour, and it used to interact with the Cascade very, very well. So some of the kind of redder, the more red fruity notes that you're getting out of this one, and berryish notes, those will also be coming from the Cascade a little bit, so you really do get a slightly kind of figgy, sort of, yeah, the black currants I can definitely see coming out of this one. That might be the power of suggestion, because I had to, you know, research the Eureka hop before, but I can really see that out of it. You do get a nice little bit of, you know, you really do get a nice sort of figgy, blackberry, black curranty type note out of this one. But underneath that, you do get a good little bit of orange, which will be coming out from the mosaic, those lighter kind of tangerine oranges in there. But you also get a fair bit of a kind of passion fruity note, which will be from the Simcoe, and it's quite a light passion fruit. It's not too dark, but you get a good bit of the kind of slightly stronger and more sour kind of grapefruity notes out of this one as well. So yeah, it's really interesting how that goes together. The Comet is going to contribute to that kind of grapefruity note as well. There's quite a few hops in this one will contribute to that big sort of grapefruity note. But yeah, it's really nice how that all goes together. The aroma of this one, I think, it comes across really nicely. As I say, not the most pungent of American IPAs that I've come across, but I've got a good feeling about the flavour of this one. So yeah, some nice darker grapefruity notes in there, a good bit of a lighter kind of passion fruity note, some juicy oranges, and also a bit of that kind of figgy sort of berryish thing coming out of this one. So I really like how this one goes together in terms of its aroma, but as I say, not the most pungent of ones that I've come across. But let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. This one is the Dank and Sticky, the inaugural beer from the Hop Concept in San Marcos, California, part of Port Brewing. and the Lost Abbey Brewery, first released back in 2014. An Imperial West Coast IPA, double West Coast IPA, coming in at 8.5% ABV. Let's get stuck into this one. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, I have to say that's pretty damn nice. You do get the IBUs out of that as well. That's what you're missing. So, to the European brewers who are now brewing these West Coast IPAs without the bitterness and the hoppiness, this is what a West Coast IPA should be. The bitterness, that's what you want. You do want this big kind of dankness out of it. You need at least 70 IBUs out of this beer style. I don't know how many this one's going to be, but we'll maybe reflect on that a little bit and talk about that later on. But this one gives you exactly what you would want from a West Coast IPA. When it's from California though, that's to be expected. Yeah, it's a really well balanced beer, this one actually. I like how it goes together. One of the other really good West Coasters that I had recently was the Hoppy 40th from Sierra Nevada. That was really nicely done. Had the big kind of dank resiny notes to it that you expected, but it also had a lovely big oily fruity character. This one's really interesting because you get a lot of the bitterness coming out later in the flavour, but you still get that kind of sweet caramelly note. It's more kind of an oily biscuit, to be honest with you, rather than a full out caramel, but you do get, it certainly leans towards the dank side of things anyway. I really like how this is going together. This beer gets a big thumbs up from me. This is quite nostalgic for me because it takes me back to the days of when I was studying chemistry in Aberdeen, and you know, we were drinking the hardcore IPA and the original punk IPA at Brewdog as well. That was my first kind of introduction to the West Coast IPAs. The Jackhammer came along not long after that as well, actually. So yeah, I really like how this whole beer goes together. It's really quite nostalgic for me. I'm glad I was able to get a hold of this one actually. This is something a little bit different, and I always enjoy, you know, a good authentic Californian IPA. So yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one a little bit then, but I will say this is a pretty damn solid beer. So yeah, this one I really like. So straight away then, you get a good bit of that kind of white bready, kind of pale malty base. That just blankets the middle of the palate there. On top of that, and as you go further into the aftertaste, you can feel the kind of middle third of your tongue just sweetening up a little bit. It's almost like you've got a kind of island in the kind of middle third of your tongue, and you've got that nice oily, you do have that nice kind of oily, biscuity type quality coming out of the beer, which I think is very, very nice. It really is like a McVitie's digestive. I don't know how to put that in the American context. So I don't know if you get, I can't remember if you get digestives over in America. I actually can't remember if you get them over there. But yeah, this one's it's really nice how that goes together actually. So yeah, I really like how this I like how this one goes together. This gets a big thumbs up from me. The malt base, it's very kind of straight up and straightforward, but it does the job. If you go towards the back of the palate there, you do get a little bit more of a kind of grainy, slightly bitey character to this one. But yeah, it's very straight up. You know, pale malt, a little bit of a white kind of bready sort of thing, which will be the kind of two-row malts kind of coming out, and then in the very centre of your palate. If you go to the very, very centre, I think you will get a bit of a sweet caramel out of it, but as you move further out from the centre of the palate, you do get just a little touch of kind of sweet biscuity notes out of it, I have to say. So yeah, I do like how that goes together in this one. This is a really very nice it's a really very nice take on the West Coast malt base. It's not the thickest and most oily one that I've come across, But yeah, definitely one of the lighter, more kind of crisp, biscuity kind of things that I've had as well, especially from an actual American one. This is quite common. This one, when I compare it, is actually quite similar to some of the ones that I've had from the different Swedish breweries. Actually, it reminds me of a beer that I had from Beerbibliotek in Gothenburg recently. What was that called? Is it Our Songs Playing or something like that? It was called. But yeah, this one actually reminds me of quite a few of the European brewed West Coast IPAs that I had back in the day. So yeah, a bit nostalgic for me in that sense. But yeah, interesting this one. So if you go to the front corners of the palette and then move back a little bit, you've got you do have one or two kind of woody undertones to this beer, but there's a hell of a lot of dankness to this one. The IBUs of this must be at least 80 or 90. They're definitely up at that higher end of the spectrum. Of course, your palate can only detect 100 IBUs, but it really is not far off that kind of saturation point, if you like. It must be 80 or 90, something like that. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate, there is a good little bit of earthiness there. That's most likely to come from the Mosaic and probably a little bit from the Chinook as well. But as you come further forward along the side of the palate, you really get a hell of a lot of piney resin out of this one. Underneath that, you do get a little bit of spiciness, which will be coming from that Columbus Tomahawk Zeus mix. It will really be coming from that. Columbus, of course, gives you that very classic sort of, it really gives you that sort of classic spiciness there, but you do get a good bit of a dank, piney resin out of this one, particularly the further you go into the aftertaste. But it's the pininess is well balanced between that and the spiciness. Round the front corners of the palate, though, you've got a nice bit of lighter grassiness in there, which is great, I have to say. So yeah, I do like how that kind of big kind of green side of the hops goes together. But let's focus on the fruity side of things. So as I always say, on the front third of your tongue, behind the front curve of your palate, you'll get that oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters will start to roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, for me at the back of that, you do get that very dark, kind of slightly sour grapefruit, and that'll be coming both from the Chinook and the Comet, and the Cascade will give you that to some degree as well. But yeah, that really, really lingers there. As you come further forward from that, you start to get a little bit more of, the kind of passion fruity note. You can feel the grapefruit, the very dark, very sour grapefruit, just gradually transitioning towards a kind of passion fruity sort of thing. You get some nice mango-y qualities out of this one. Almost there is a wee bit of that mango-y note, but then as you reach the very kind of front part of your tongue, the kind of the front half of that front third of your tongue, the front sixth of your tongue, you do get the kind of oily oranges from you get that oily orange character from the Mosaic, and it does start to lean a little bit more towards the kind of tangerine side of things later on. But you can kind of feel the sort of almost figgy notes from the Cascade pushing their way out, and you do get a little bit of that kind of berryish character as well, which will be from the Eureka. You can really feel that kind of coming out in this one as well, actually. So yeah, it's really interesting that the back of that front third of your tongue, the back of it is really dark and sour and grapefruity, then it's a wee bit passion fruity, then on the front part it's almost like the oily orangey tangerine notes, and then you get the red fruity parts coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, I like how that goes together. But the further you go into the aftertaste, you get that darker grapefruity note lingering there, but you also get some nice some very, very nice kind of juicier fruits pushing their way out as well. So yeah, I like how this goes together. But yeah, this one is a really nice, solid West Coast IPA. It doesn't do anything, kind of surprising with the style, but when it uses the name Dank and Sticky, it certainly is bloody dank, I'll tell you that. It really does have that going for it. The further you go into the aftertaste with this one, the sides of your palate almost just feel dry because of that big spiciness from the CTZ and the kind of piney resins that you'll get from the Chinook as well. Those will be the two kind of hops that are dominating on that. So if I was guessing, I would say that probably the CTZ and the Chinook are the bittering hops in this one. Maybe the Cascade might have been used in both aspects of it, but I would suspect that you know, the Chinook, the CTZ, the Cascade, potentially the Comet as well. Maybe those have been used as the bittering hops, but then the Centennial, the Eureka, the Mosaic, and the Simcoe, maybe they're the ones that have been added later on in the boil. Usually an IPA has a bit of it usually has a sort of 90-minute boil. You do get different ones, of course, that can have different boils, but usually it's a 90-minute boil, and the kind of flavour hops are added after the first hour or so, and the bittering hops are added usually when you actually reach you know, the 100 degrees or whatever. So yeah, that's an interesting point to make about that one. I'd be curious to know which are early edition hops and which are late edition hops. But nothing that, you know, we can sit and guess about that all day, but the main point to make is that this is a really pretty solid beer, and it delivers what it says on the tin, so that's exactly what you want. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say this is kind of mid-bodied. Not the thickest of West Coast IPAs I've come across, but definitely leaning towards that kind of top end of mid-bodied spectrum. The carbonation's very smooth. The mouthfeel overall I think is quite oily, but again it's not the thickest, most oily West Coast IPA that I've come across. The hoppy bitterness in this one, it's kind of hard to say exactly, but I would suspect that it's at least 80 IBUs in this. This one is pretty damn high. It's very close to the kind of saturation point. Once you get to a certain point, you know, your mouth can only deal with 100 IBUs actually. Some people say 120, but I reckon 100. That's, you know, that would make sense, to be honest with you. That's how you create scales. You take a logical number and divide it into pieces. So yeah, I think this one has to be at least 80 IBUs, but maybe at this point, because the bitterness of beers generally has dropped over the last few years, my mouth might be a little bit more my palate might be a little bit more susceptible to that. But I do think this one's at least 80. I think it is at least 80. So yeah, good chunk of hoppy bitterness in this one. The malt base has a good bit of smoothness to it. You've got some lovely kind of sweetness to the beer as well, and you've also got some nice juicy and also oily fruits in this one. As I say, the further you go into the aftertaste, you get that nice, you do get a nice little bit of that kind of oily orange out of the beer, some of the berry notes as well, so it's definitely a little bit more kind of juicy there too. So yeah, the Cascade and the Eureka I think really start to shine in the aftertaste. The Mosaics linger in there as well, and the darker hops in this are certainly playing a role too. I don't see the Centennial kind of showing its head too much in this one, but yeah, you know, normally you'd get that on the very edge of the tongue with a bit of zestiness, which I suppose there is, but yeah, the Centennial for me doesn't show its head too much in this one. But as I say, a lovely kind of straight shooter of a West Coast IPA. Nothing surprising about the style of the beer, but you know what you're looking for here is a well crafted beer, and that's certainly what you get, and it's not surprising considering who's behind actually brewing this beer. So yeah, big thumbs up to the parent company, you know, whether it's Port Brewing Company, Lost Abbey, or whoever's actually behind you know, whoever is actually the parent company of this one. A really, really nice beer, this one, and definitely cool to feature something a little bit different for you here on the channel. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one has been a little bit of a longer review, but I hope you've enjoyed it nonetheless. Been really cool to review this one for you. I love the West Coast IPAs, so I hope that I can feature more of these for you, especially more of the American ones on the channel over the next little while. But thank you again for watching. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys very soon. This one was the Dank and Sticky at 8.5%, an Imperial double, whatever you want to call it, West Coast IPA from the Hop Concept, part of the Port Lost Abbey group of breweries based in San Marcos in Southern California over on the West Coast of America. Slàinte, Skull, catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out this beer if you get the chance. Very, very nice kind of classic West Coast IPA. Cheers.